sounds nice out there.
Yeah, it's super nice. We've been having excellent weather lately.
From the hurricane.
I don't know if
From
that's
the
what it's
big
from.
hurricane.
We're having fires too, up in the mountains.
All up to British Columbia, right? You saw them.
Yeah, I don't know how those are. I don't know if those are still going or not. But like in Oakhurst, like where my mom lives, there is another big fire, and we're going up there today. So
Right.
hopefully we don't get burnt to a crisp.
You're gonna see some more flames. The cleansing fire.
Yep.
I guess. Yeah, something like that.
I mean, whichever parts aren't engineered
So,
fires are probably cleansing. What's up,
yeah,
Christian? How have you
and
been? What's going on with Christian?
lots of research. Um, Big world views come in. Big world views, and intense, intense revelations to the relationship to our environment and how the things we live in with our environment are there, and it just takes going to the right spots to see them and interact with them, and you know what kind of culture can be produced out of the technological advanced society merging with the old society which we used to have, which was
Agrarian.
I'll get into that. We're not recording yet, are we?
We're recording.
Oh, we are. Okay,
Yeah.
okay. Yeah. So the old society. I just saw an article on Facebook. It was about how the Amazon is actually an entire like man-made food forest. They planted it over hundreds of years
The Amazon is
for all the
man-made.
fruit trees and the nuts and stuff like that.
Wow.
And that's how the Americas were when, before all the colonizers got here. They they had planted and maintained basically this nationwide food forest essentially. And I remember reading stories about how the native woman could walk 30 meters, not even 30 meters outside the village and come back with baskets full of fruit, vegetables, and like leafy greens and fruits and berries and stuff like that. So
Huh.
they acted as the gardeners, and they made it compatible and abundant through that care. And then we have so that's one of the ancient civilizations, and then the other one is the highly advanced technological Atlantean, Babylonian type of thing that's been going on time and time again. And I think that what's supposed to happen is that they are supposed to merge. So
Hmm.
we don't really have much of a choice except to merge both ideas, because nobody is going to go back to spending their entire day, planting the food forest, and nobody necessarily wants to limit their reality to that. But if you can imagine all of the modern megacities revamped to everywhere food was just growing, and water was used appropriately and stuff like that, and technology can actually be utilized in such a way to basically create abundant growth of crops in such a way that the fruit trees that you plant could start producing fruit within a year, based on frequencies that you could play to them in the ultrasonic range. This was a method of growing called sonic bloom. This guy ended up in a world record, both the Guinness Book of World Records because he grew a house plant that was supposed to be 1 foot tall to over 100 feet tall.
Really?
Using, yeah. So this stuff is really interesting when you combine Ormus. So one of the things that made his sonic boom successful, or even more successful than it normally would have been, was that he was spraying ocean water, ocean minerals on his plants. When he would spray the ocean minerals on his plants and then hit them with the frequency, they would grow very, very tall.
What
very
was the?
fast, and
Was it like a measurable hertz frequency of sound, or what was he beaming at them?
yeah, it was. I've got a book actually somewhere. Hold on. I just want a stack of books.
Yep.
Okay. Okay, so this book is called Secrets of the Soil.
SOS.
And
Nice.
yeah, yeah. It's whatever. Get my face.
When was it written?
Secrets of the Soil. Good question. There's a copyright for 1998, and the first 1998, but this might be this revised edition. But I'd say 1998 is probably when it came about. So it's new solutions for restoring our planet, and the first quote is from Rudolf Steiner, and I'll read it.
But, I can't.
Yeah. No, I'll read it. I was just
Yep.
trying. It's that. So long as one feeds on food from unhealthy soil, the spirit will lack the stamina to free itself from the prison of the body.
Wow.
And so this book, I opened up to a random page one day, and page was 132. And anyway, this chapter is about sonic boom, and I don't have to read a lot of it, but I just want to show something. And this is Dr. Webster with the tallest sweet corn crop on record, I believe, at 16 feet from using this method.
Wow. What was his environment?
Yeah.
Where was he doing this?
All right, let's check it. Yeah, they're 16 feet high. Dr. Webster. Not sure where this guy was. Because they talked about a couple of people of doing it. It says Wisconsin in here, but I'm not sure because they're citing a couple different sources. So one of my ideas for creating this society was to have drones deliver Ormus in the form of a spray and like fly around, go like beep, beep, and then they would like plant something, go beep, 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 and plant something over here and kind of create this food forest for us. Technology that we have, and then they can come back and then water and provide the frequency to that plant to make it grow like sonic bloom. If you wanted to do it that way, or you could have antennas, of course.
Oh, it's sonic bloom, like BLOOM.
Yep.
Okay.
Bloom.
Okay. I was thinking it's sonic boom. I was like, how does that relate to plants? No, that makes more sense.
So we don't have to stay on this topic forever because there's plenty of other topics, but this is the main thing, is that I believe that the how to reconcile the karma of the civilization or basically make it all peaceful again is to make this fruit forest and have society be a functioning fruit forest that synthesizes their technology and everything that they need instead of taking it from other places.
Yeah, I mean that's one of the main methods of control is forcing people to eat the the shit food, basically, like all of the everything that's out there, the GMOs and pesticides in all the food, all of the synthetic stuff that we're putting in our mouths, in addition to the whole way that the economic system is set up, which is all set up for control. But if people are to remove themselves from the matrix in any way, it has to start with the basics of being able to eat is the main one, really. Having shelter, I mean, homeless people don't even necessarily have shelter, but everybody needs to eat and everybody needs water. Like, those are the two.
Yeah, exactly. And those are actually one of the two biggest controlled things. I wanted to read this part, but I want to say that one of my friends just made a post about how many dams there are in the world. Like there's mega dams, I don't know, like 100 mega dams or something like that.
Uh-huh.
So the reality that we're in is based on the constriction of the flow of energy or the flow of currency. Basically, a lack. It's the manifest scarcity or fake scarcity, where arbitrary,
Yeah, yeah,
not
yeah.
real,
Manufactured.
forced, manufactured. So that is also represented by how all of these rivers are dammed up because life needs the water. And like on a continent, if you have a continent, a large landmass, all life is going to go towards the river. Like
Mm-hmm.
the river's running through, then it always goes to the river.
Yep.
And if you dam up the river, that's less water or life for the continent, or less energy, less nutrients. So to free our civilization, we basically have to look at like all the pictures. It's not just like, oh, we free one thing from here and then it's like done. It's more of like there's the fractalized
Yep.
thing. So if
Yep.
there's constriction down here, there's constriction up here. If there's constriction on this subject, there's constriction on this subject,
Yep.
and they're all intertwined.
Yeah, and the dams are on all of the flow. They're on information flow. They're on water flow. They're on food flow. They're
Yeah,
on
yeah,
they're
it's
on
all connected.
monetary flow. Like the whole system would like to, like, water. Water likes to go where it goes, and the only way to stop it is by literally putting a wall, and then you have a dam. And then even where uh, the river would have continued past where the dam was put up, it's not even continuing naturally in that spot. It's divided up into canal systems, and you know what canals are. They're not thriving places for wildlife. Like, yes, there are some minnows in there and some guppies and some bullfrogs, but for the most part, it's not like a river, which is literally a whole thriving ecosystem of itself.
Yeah,
So it's just a big disruption, really.
yeah, no, it's and that's like the big thing in human health too, is that like what are the two main diseases? It would be like obesity and then cardio or circulatory illnesses,
Mm-hmm.
essentially. And
Which is exactly what
it's
we're
the
talking
same.
about. It's dams inside of the
Yeah,
body,
that's
right?
what right. It's the same exact problem,
Yeah.
but one is damming the continent from the river, and one is just damming your arm from receiving blood because you got like some grease up in there.
Yeah.
From and like yeah, so it's amazing when you can actually see it like that,
Well, like
and
blood clots, right? That's a dam inside of your vein that gives you a heart attack.
exactly. So yeah, and that's it's the pulse, it's the flow of life, it's the meandering back and forth. Uh, but let me read this part about sonic bloom because it's really important for people to understand the. This is just one method of methods that can be layered over top of each other continuously until you reach such a level of food production. I mean, it's incredible, and all of the techniques are either with frequency, sound, light, or magnetism, are making earth batteries to send electric currents through the earth to your crops and feed them that way. Because just like the continent needs the current, the water current, so does your body need the water current, and it's also the current of electricity that your body needs, and
Yeah.
your body's ability to conduct electrons to the mitochondria. So if if basically if you grow food with electricity and the same principles as nature with light and sound, then you get amazing yields and magnetism. Don't forget that. So
Yep.
uh, here we go. Back in his pleasantly refurbished clapboard house, oldest in the country, McClurg took from his refrigerator a dozen oranges the size of a small grapefruit. These were picked at my grove yesterday, he explained. Ordinarily, oranges as big as these would be pithy and woody inside, with very little juice. Slicing 4 of them with a razor-sharp butcher's cleaver, McClurg held up several of the hemispheres dripping with juice to show off rinds no thicker than 1/8 of an inch. An electric juicer processed 3 of them to nearly fill all pint-sized glass. Nearly fill a pint-sized glass. Oranges like these, said McClurg, will give me a crop with at least 30% increase in yield and a marked rise in pounds solid. Add to the fact that the Garvey Center in Improvement of Human Functioning, a medically pioneering research group in Wichita, Kansas, has tested the juice to show an increase of 121% in natural vitamin C over normal oranges. And you can understand that this iconic new discovery we're talking about not only improves quantity, but also quality. I've run blindfolded tests with scores of ordinary people who have compared the taste of my juice with that of oranges from many other groves, and they all selected mine as the most lip-smackingly superior. And the book also goes into how cows would prefer feed grown with sonic bloom more so than other feed. Like a dog. There was a documentary that was talking about water and different water qualities. An animal will always choose fresh spring water over tap water, like every time.
Yeah.
They will smell both the waters and choose.
Does it
So
say
animals do this.
Does it say anything in there about whether watering routines for the plants is different or less or more, along with the frequency treatment and the ocean minerals?
I think the watering is the same, but the timing of the frequency and the spraying is what matters.
Okay.
Because with electroculture, there's a fine balance. So you're either gonna give just enough electric current to stimulate the plant growth or the seed to germinate, or you're gonna fry it, or you know what I mean. So there's a very fine balance with using the technology, but we have the capability to do that. And there's just a lot of other stuff in here.
What devices is he using for the
The
frequency?
propagation of the sound.
Yeah.
Yeah, let me try to find that.
And is it something that you have to create, or is there something on the market? Like, could anybody just go and get it right now and then make their house plant grow a couple feet extra?
I think that you could create your own, but I don't think that there's anything to buy right now. But don't hold me to that. You could.
It might be out there. And
I'm trying to read.
is this normally this sort of information gets suppressed, right? Or else there's some sort of
Well, you want a Guinness Book of World Records. It's actually been around 200 years. I actually have a lot more information on different electroculture methods. I'm not sure what kind of device exactly. All I know is that it's a frequency that's being played out, and there's a lot of words in this book, so I'm having a hard time finding it. But I can.
There are
I'm gonna.
products called Sonic Bloom, but it's all like minerals. It's like a fertilizer or something.
Yeah, yeah, I do. I've heard of that.
I don't know if that's related in any way, but most likely you would have to find out what the frequency is, figure out how to produce it, and then experiment and see what range is correct for the plants.
Right. I've got. Yeah, I'll have to. There's so much information in here, but let me. I do have some papers with other information about that in particular.
Do you have your own garden, or do you do any gardening at your place?
I'm ready to. I'm either gonna go to Puerto Rico to do this, and including other methods, or I'm going to back to Virginia
Hmm.
to because my grandmother wants to do a food forest finally. She researched it and found it herself and was like, "Oh, we got to do this." And I was like, "Yeah, I know."
Nice, nice. That's
Trying to tell
good.
you.
Get grandma in on it.
Um, yeah, he owns a. Um, yeah, I got papers around here, but there's some. So give me 1 second. I mean, like, really, if you want the particular details, probably I can get the papers, but if you just
You don't
want
have
some
to.
overview,
Yeah, we're doing overviews here. We're not. People can do their own
yeah,
research
that's
and all that stuff.
yeah, and that'll come up pretty quick if you type in electroculture on Google, and we can put in some information on there and stuff like that. But
Does commercial farming utilize this method at all? Do you know?
well, you see, it was either this has been around for like 200 years. Like 200 years ago, people were creating antennas to harvest solar energy and like send it into the ground like a ground battery. This
Mm-hmm.
guy's name was Justin Cristo Flore, and it's really just the fact that the potassium nitrate. So what they started doing was just making like chemical salts that like to feed the plants, and they were connected with the gunpowder mines. So potassium nitrate is what they make gunpowder out of, and they also use it as fertilizer and a meat preservative.
Uh,
And it was really interesting because I had heard that, and apparently, you know, saltpeter, they would like feed it to soldiers in the Civil War because it kills, or like on a ship, which is potassium nitrate or gunpowder, it would kill their sex drive and make them really angry. And you'll like I was told that they do that to fighting dogs too and stuff like that.
wow.
So like basically everybody's eat not everybody, but a lot of people are eating meat with potassium nitrate preservative, which is known to make your teeth fall out and kill your sex drive and all kinds of shit. But
Yeah,
it's all one company basically, or not all one company, but it's related.
like
It's
Monsanto
related.
type thing.
It's like the mines that get it out of the ground, the minerals and stuff like that, and then they use it as a chemical fertilizer. So you have it as a fertilizer, gunpowder, and meat preservative. So it's multifaceted. But this has been around for a while. The electroculture has been around for a while. It just never picked up because, you know, you had different agendas going on.
Yeah. Is
But
there any benefit to using this potassium nitrate, or is it all just killing type stuff?
uh, well, it's a way to quickly feed the crops. It's basically like versus making soil, they just keep adding the synthetic chemical chemicals to them.
But the potassium nitrate is actually good for plants, like it's food for them.
Yeah, like it adds nitrogen.
Okay.
I have it right here. Sure.
But I assume that when you eat the fruit of that plant, you're consuming that as well, right?
Peter, because it used to be called.
Saltpeter?
Well, that's what I was thinking too. Yeah, saltpeter is another name for potassium nitrate.
It's probably a similar concept to fluoride. Like fluoride has benefits for teeth and you know, removing bacteria and stuff in your mouth supposedly, but it also is supposed to calcify your pineal gland and has negative things as well. So it's probably in line with that whole sort of agenda to remove people from their their own power. You know, you get people into that sleepwalking mode, and then they don't cause any trouble.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's necessarily a terrible thing if the people have been at such a low level of consciousness to begin with. Maybe people had been like animals or something, and that there was some possible benefit to it. I don't really know, you know.
Yeah.
Or maybe what happened is like the population got.
German scientist that made it, that came up with the idea. It was a German during World War One or World War Two. Came up with the idea to start doing it like that.
I think some of the issues that are going on here is that, like, the the society manipulation and control through like social media and social programming and psychology, MK Ultra, all that stuff, right? Like it comes in with a purpose because it's wars are going on, and you know it's a war tactic really. But I have a feeling a lot of Frankenstein stuff got in there because they're fucking with stuff they don't know the outcome, what it's gonna be, and perhaps they got the people to a state to where if they pull the people out of this state, then they go nuts. You know what I'm saying? And then if you don't have the proper recovery system, and if you imagine a whole like a whole world of people who have been programmed in this way, and then they try to come out of it, then you're gonna have mass chaos. Like you try to pull all the people off of their pharma at once, you're gonna have mass chaos. Take the beer away, take all of the medication away, take away beer, take away TV, take away mindless consumerism, take away all this focus on the whole thing. Like I feel like it has to be a very gradual awakening for those who are ready, and it's not for the ones who aren't ready, because that will create a mass chaos.
Well, it's kind of interesting that you would say that, like, you know, that, well, a lot of people, you know, they get very aggressive when you tell them something different. You know what I mean? Like a different viewpoint of the matrix or corporations in general or whatever. Anything that challenges their worldview, instead of being, you know, open and receiving, they get very violent. You know, like they don't want to deal with that. The fact that they can lie to each other, which is understandable.
It's like
Yeah,
it's like airtight defense. If you imagine that person has like their perimeter, right? Their body is like their battlefield. The perimeter is the skin, and anything in the mind, you know, there's also perimeters in the mind. There's this web of defense, and they cut it off at the first sign. Like there's not even any penetration whatsoever. That's where that instant anger comes from, because it cuts off any penetration of anything immediately. And it has nothing to do with logic or reasonability or anything like that. It has to do with simply we are defending immediately, without any questions asked, at all costs. That's the mentality.
Yeah, that's how my uncle was with, you know, very American patriot type of dude.
Mm-hmm.
And I would just be like, you know, it's just something really easy to point out. Like, if America is was so great and based on freedom from the beginning, why did we use all these slaves or slaughter all the Indians? There is no logical response for those actions of our nation.
Yeah.
So people will just defend anything for whatever reason. But that's why it's not even this technique of combining the food forest infrastructure with cities as to provide alternatives. That's providing an alternative is easier than convincing somebody of a point.
Right.
So
Right.
if you can provide the alternative, or even just provide a different way of thinking without right saying you're wrong, which is really the first thing that I guess a lot of truthers or somebody with a new idea says you're wrong, like you're wrong, you're fucked up, and that's obviously going to evoke
Yeah, that's a
some.
ridiculous way to do it. The only way that ever works is to firstly acknowledge that the way the church and everything in the government has been set up is to get stronger by being attacked. So know that, acknowledge that fully, and then know that you still are free to move around and innovate and create and like be an example. And then if somebody sees what you're doing and they say, come up and say, hey Christian, like what are you doing? Can I partake somehow? Then at that point you're like, yes, welcome, and here's how you can do it. And then you're
Yeah,
getting
it's
around that
exactly it.
whole anger reaction thing, which is going to come up if you try to, if they catch a hint that you're trying to force any of your ideas on them. Immediate defense. Can't do that.
Yeah, and I mean I mean that's fair, in a way. It's like a lot of people want to just tell everybody, you know what I mean? I feel like in the movement right now, or the trooper movement, people think to be like, oh, we're gonna spread the information and that's enough. But really,
Nah.
it's gonna take people being examples for whatever it is that they want to see change in. So,
Right.
and then no, without the action and the example, the words are meaningless. And that was one of the first things that I realized is when I started having all these ideas a while ago and how I wanted to live and how I wanted to change how I live. I was like, especially after going through of trying to tell people, like all these wonderful revelations, just like, oh, I just want to tell you, people don't even want to hear it. So you have people that will support you, and then when you find those people and those like-minded people, you just gotta go for it,
Yeah.
because I don't think I just can't, with the amount of neurological programming and the scarcity of intellectual deductive reasoning right now in this day and age. I don't think armed rebellion is really gonna necessarily do it. Because yeah,
That was
I just like
no. There's no way. There's no way.
it,
That was past a long time. That's just fairy tale stuff. Like it's hard to describe even how it is, but we're so far past the idea of physical combat. It's it's purely a mental realm now. It has become purely mental as far as the warfare. There's no more physical stuff. I know there is in some places, and likely that's not even about. Let's see if we can decimate this, like certain number of people and see if they die, and then this one will be strong. Like that's not even happening at all anymore. At least not in this realm. It may be happening somewhere else in the universe, but here it's all mental. It's governmental. It's it's mental governance,
yeah,
and it's not about like using power for gain. That's if we've learned nothing from everything that we've seen with our eyeballs while we've been here, it's that using overt force always backfires. It's in the overall run, it's not good for the aggressor, nor is it good for the suppressed. It's just not. Never works.
yeah,
It fulfills egos of the leaders and the country who's feeling very patriotic or whatever group, but it's not helping either side in the long run.
yeah, and that's the the whole Walter Russell explosion versus implosion thing. Everybody thinks like we gotta explode, like force out our, instead of what I think, or a lot of people say we got to get out of the realm. A lot of people,
Yeah.
the whole fallen realm construct, you have to liberate yourself from.
Right.
But I'm starting to think more so that it's like an implosion thing, where like this change is going to be a spark inside of the realm that's like just the same as the virus that took over. The
Hmm.
change will be in such a way a virus, just in the way that the suppression was a virus.
Right. That's what that's what Lauda says. That's what Lauda says. She says we are the virus, which means it's like a counter to the original parasitic virus that's trying to dominate humanity. There's a counter virus to it, and that original one can't see us and understand us any more than we can see and understand it. Like we see vague outlines of what that thing was and what it did, what effects are currently rippling out to our current present. It sees us in the same way. It's not seeing human beings. It's seeing some sort of patterns, and it's like, what is this? It doesn't have the same reasoning facilities, doesn't have the same emotional input, doesn't have the same electromagnetic input as we do. It's different. It's two like realities that are understanding something from each other, but not a lot.
Yeah, that's quite interesting. That idea of the AI is just the multidimensional AI is something that's looking at the wave patterns being produced
Yeah,
by each nodal point.
yeah, exactly.
Um,
That's what I think Castaneda said in his, or Don Juan said in his book, is that they don't see human beings. They see like imagine if you know a frog likes eating flies, right? Like it's only seeing movements and it knows that it likes to eat. It doesn't see like this little thing with wings necessarily, and the thing has feelers and it has feet and it looks like, it doesn't see it how we see it necessarily. It sees like it has an urge to eat, and then it sees movement, and it understands the fly in a completely different way. Like I don't think this AI sees human beings. It sees, like you said, it sees nodes that are moving around, and it knows that some of them can be eaten, or rather, if such and so is done to the node, then it can be eaten, right?
yeah.
And and therefore you have all of the controls that elicit negative emotions if the thing likes eating negative emotions, but it still is not seeing humans.
It's quite interesting, because essentially what they don't outright say is that basically all the molecules in a molecular geometry are in a geometry, and they're vibrating back and forth, and they're creating these waves, and they're like basically going like this, and
Mm-hmm.
they're creating this interference pattern, like what you're talking about, which would be these nodal point cymatics. And the idea is that if you can create a civilization with the correct architecture, the correct biological constructs, including the human body and trees and flowers and all the rest of this stuff, and limit wave patterns that would be deconstructive. So it's like just with this electroculture, if you apply too much of a certain frequency, the plant will die. If you apply just the right amount, it will grow 100 feet tall. So in this modern brute force technological civilization, all of the wave patterns are coherent. They're not destructive. So there isn't a wave pattern that goes like boom and then both get destroyed. Instead, you have these wave patterns that like nest within each other like this, and then it's multiplicative. It's exponential growth versus versus having like a radio antenna killing birds because the frequency is so high. You have a radio antenna that actually transmits data on a wavelength that is biologically supportive or biologically, you know, non-invasive.
Yeah.
So, so it goes even further into like the construction of buildings. So ancient buildings are like the pyramid would be paramagnetic and then diamagnetic rock. which would be the pink rose granite as the paramagnetic, and then the diamagnetic as the limestone. And then when you layer them, it becomes a capacitor, and they would store energy in the buildings. So you have like all these ancient buildings with these antennas, are like churches with antennas and resonating chambers.
Hmm.
So people go inside the resonating chamber and basically charge the building with the sound, and it's resonating and vibrating. And then you'll have like a bell, and you ring the bell like ding 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 ding, and then it sends out this wave like out into the world of every thought and intention that was just resonated within that building. And
uh,
that's how this technology and this ancient technology actually worked with the ley lines and such, was that the buildings were actually acting as capacitors for different types of radiation or for lightning to strike and charge the building, and the buildings themselves would provide a biological nutrition based on radiation for people and the inhabitants of the buildings
so
versus
they would
having a
amplify.
house.
They would like amplify the
Yeah.
manifesting potential of the people inside of the building. Maybe
Yeah.
unbeknownst to them. Is that what you're saying? Or they knew?
In this mm, no, they knew. They don't know now, but they did know. And possibly they did not know, but somebody, the people that built them did know
Yeah.
what they were doing. And
That would make total
but yeah,
sense. That would make total
that
sense with.
that's a good point.
That would make total sense
But
with
they
churches, like if everybody's in there singing to the same creator and then that's, you know, rippling out, that would make total sense to how it would propagate itself. It wouldn't even need, if it's going out in waveform from the building itself, it would not need a leader, so to speak. Like the people would catch up that wave inside themselves and then they would start talking to each other in the language of the wave. You know what I'm saying? Like it wouldn't require like an
yeah.
infrastructure.
So yeah, that's exactly right, and that's a lot of what we're dealing with now. Is that's what scalar warfare is, and like the woodpecker symbol from Russia, or psychotronic warfare, is that they can use these Wi-Fi towers that we have as our telecommunication infrastructure and encode or modulate data onto the wave that is picked up by the subconscious, but not by the conscious mind. So really, when our biological input would have just been the sun giving us electromagnetic waves from the sun, now we have a whole bunch of antennas giving us these digitally encoded waves with information that we don't even realize that we're getting, but our body realizes it because
Yeah.
our body is created to pick up electromagnetic signals and decode them to create basically our bodies for the correct environment. And
Just, just a
you
side.
could also do
Sorry, just a side note. As far as, because for the most part the population has been so, the like the plans have been so flawless that if you say to anybody anything that's like, hey, maybe the government doesn't have your best interests in mind, like anything like small, then they're like, no, no, like mad or whatever, right? just just
yeah.
just a side note on that. Somebody, one of this girl that Elena Green, like I watched some of her videos, not a lot, but she made this video. It was a it was an advertisement from like the 60s or the 70s, and she had slowed it down a whole bunch, and whatever, like the national anthem was being played on the thing, and messages would like
Yeah,
flash really quickly,
flicker in and out. Yeah,
and it was saying things like government is god. It was saying things like, consume, just like they live, exactly like that. And it was actually in the,
yeah.
and I'm not saying that this thing couldn't have been created by somebody to, you know to pretend like this was happening or not. I'm not saying that's out of the range of possibility, but even if you look, there's stuff that's readily available and visible. You could, like, they put dicks and stuff in images. They hide it. They hide the word sex in water contain. Like, it's everywhere. If you actually look for it, it's literally, it's like right in front of your face.
Oh yeah, yeah. No, it's
Like the subliminal thing
everything.
is.
Well, there's sigils, so all it's the same it's the same thing basically as like you ask a whole bunch of people nowadays and age, hey, can you name that plant? They're like, no, but hey, can you name that corporate logo? And they're like, yes,
Yeah.
because the corporate logo is the akin of a letter and a sound, and that is a sigil and a sound like in magic. So it's the same exact system but applied to corporate and government bases, and people don't understand that media is actually a way to transmit information. Uh, they've forgotten that media isn't just entertainment; it's actually a way to give information and thoughts to people.
Yeah.
So it's in every single movie too. Uh, you know, there's plenty of examples, but
I made a video like I
it's
don't know a few months ago where the title was like the final frontier is not outer space, the final frontier is mental real estate. And it was that
right.
same concept that the reason big brands are big brands is because they're holding stake inside your mind. And they're doing that because
Yeah,
they've propagated the memes or however you call it, the sigils, the symbols slash the sound or whatever you're associating that with. They'll associate it with
yeah,
smells like Coors Light. Everyone thinks Coors Light is like the Rocky Mountains, like that's not even legal as far as nothing in corporate is really legal, but you're not supposed to associate natural things with products that you're selling. And to everybody, Coors Light is literally the Rocky Mountains. Like they're buying the
right.
Rocky Mountains. That's all you see on the signs is the mountains, and they're able
Right.
to do it because they're not directly saying Coors is the Rocky Mountains, but everybody knows it.
Yeah, it's that's how it works. Is association and hypnosis, and basically convincing somebody that these two things are the same, but they're not at all the
Mm-hmm.
same.
Yeah.
To get them to buy it.
Just, I mean, prime example, like, how many different bottled water companies are there now? Or at least how many different brandings are there? You have in the gas station, half of the thing is different brands of bottled water. How many different bottled waters do we need? And people are paying the same for those as they pay for a Dr. Pepper. They're paying $2 for a bottle of water.
Yeah, no, it's absolutely ridiculous, and all these things don't need to be sold in the first
There's
place.
and they
You know.
sell air now. There's oxygen bars, just like in that movie where at the end the villain was bottling air and like sending it, like selling it to the populace. Like they're trying to sell literally everything that started out as natural. And
And patent it
that was the whole
and
idea.
make a
That was the whole idea of the
and
the patent system was that you can't patent something that's natural. So they just found a billion loopholes how to still patent something that's natural.
so basically, if they can replace your DNA with their GMO RNA strands, then you are owned by them because your DNA is patented by them.
Yeah.
So
I know it gets
yeah,
ridiculous. Og said something I forgot. He said something really ridiculous before. He was like, "Imagine if every single neuron like had its own patent. Every single neuron in your brain was owned and operated by a different company. Just imagine, like,
with a little watermark on the neuron.
yeah,
When you zoom into it with a microscope, it's got like XYZ.
it's like
Uh,
Nike."
yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah,
I know
it's
that these are still like theoretical stuff, kind of, and funny, kind of, but at the same time, what we're doing here in the realm right now is we're looking at the whole quantum entanglement possibility spectrum of everything.
that's not even theoretical. That's happening. That's already
The
happening.
neuron patenting.
The whole synthetic tissue. I mean, they're 3D printing hearts and organs,
Yeah,
and
right.
that's just around the corner. As far as every single body part being able to be patented or created or synthesized by a company,
Yeah,
and that's true.
yeah. It's
That,
it's
that can already happen.
it's just trying to get around like the original idea that like what's God is God's and what's Caesar's is Caesar's, like that whole thing.
Oh,
Like
is that it?
that's what that's it says in the Bible, like give to God what is God's and give to Caesar what is it's separation of the natural versus the manipulation, which is humans and or cyborgs and whatever other, tech AI, whatever it is, manipulation,
Right.
playing
Well, the
Frankenstein
only
basically.
the way that I view it is that right now the technology is just owned by certain people, and when the ownership exchanges hands, when it does, and as more technology comes in and it becomes more, instead of just like one monopoly opening, having a patent on neurons, you'll have somebody making neurons in their fucking basement. I mean, that's just where we're going
I
with
know,
it
I
at
know,
this
I know.
point.
Wherever you have like a giant corporate interest doing something, you always have a million nerds in their basement battling the idea and making their own take on it. So it's not ever like, oh my god, the corporations are running everything and I can't even move one eyeball. I can't even like glance to the left without getting a signature by the interest in
Well,
this
that's
particular
what
eye.
they want you to think. Hey, I'll be right back. Yeah, rude.
Yeah, I'm
I
gonna
need
get
some.
something to drink too. We'll take a 1 minute break. Coconut milk. It's good stuff if you're lactose intolerant. guys are so loud.
Yeah. They're very loud.
That's really that's all that the society is. It's just a bunch of noise. Like it's just noise. It's outer noise and inner noise. And if you want to find what exists that's outside of all that noise, you got to go into the forest and sit there for a while. And then you're like, oh, like life itself isn't so fucking noisy, you know? It's not.
Well, all the noises in life complement and provide food for each other. You know, it's like when you hear the
In the
birds
forest,
singing,
yeah, in the forest. But
like,
that's a harmonious noise, like a giant metal box screaming through the air is not like harmonious to the one time I saw I was watching some geese, like a flock of geese flying by, and I was like, oh, you know, some geese, and I saw something in the geese that was off. I was like, what the fuck is that bird? What is it? And it was a giant jet, but it was far enough away that it looked about the same size as the geese. And I was like, dude, there's something wrong with it. You know, it's just, it's like I don't know, it's like we're propagating eyesores everywhere.
well, that is the interesting, the thing that is the difference between this technological civilization that propagates this noise, or what you would call destructive interference
Mm-hmm.
with electromagnetic waves, and this other society that has learned from the forest actually propagates coherent and harmonious waves and noises and sounds and lights and
Right.
cars and airplanes. So, you know, you have the noise and then you have the beautiful symphony harmony that we are
And
capable of producing.
right. And I know that technology can be synthesized with the natural world without going down the transhumanist route, and let's end up as tall grays with no emotions 1,000 years in the future or however long. It doesn't have to be that way, because you can't argue that
Right.
we're transhumanist to an extent anyway. Like the second somebody picked up
Yeah.
a hammer, they became transhumanist. It's really like when the mind decided it was going to separate itself from, you know, the living present and cast out forward and backwards. That's when we became transhumanist, because that's where all of the ideas for, oh, you know, like I want more food, so blah, you know, cast out into the future. Like that's where the whole thing started anyway. So any of us pretending that we can be natural while we're having the mind that's doing that, you're just full of shit. It can't
Well,
happen.
and yeah, but it's kind of like it's not even the point at this point. We've already progressed. We are post natural world now, and we have to reconcile the fact that um, you know, part of our world is technology that is emulating the forest. And how can we emulate the forest better is what I'm saying. That's what the new society is about.
Yeah, because that's
It's
what the cities
because,
are. They're like ugly forests, right?
yeah.
It's giant, ugly trees, you know? And,
Right,
you know,
right.
I don't know. It's the whole thing, but there are innovative. Like I saw a city that didn't have any roads. It had, where the roads were, it had water. Like everybody boated from house to house to business to whatever. Like
Right.
as far as creativity, we could be doing so much more. We haven't done anything. In this run, we've only done the destructive, retarded shit. Like we haven't done any, very little. We've done some of it, but as far as what I see, it's just that mindless sort of let's propagate this noise for no reason, and we don't know we're doing it even because we're so dead inside. Like that kind of thing has been going. We need to bring the other thing
Right.
in.
And right. So, for example, it's like there's a military patent on making trees wireless antennas, like are having trees transfer data. And right now
Really?
they're in Africa. They're yeah.
Wow.
So that's how nature. Like right now, they are actually making the internet going. It's going to be transmitted through light, and they're making a whole bunch of light-powered robots that get their input from light. And essentially, basically, what we are. is that we're light-powered robots getting our input from the sun, and the sun tells us when to sleep, when to digest our food, and all the other biological processes come from the sun. So the internet is now becoming that, based on light. So what I'm saying is like that in Africa they're planting a massive tree wall from like the sun, from end to end. That tree wall could become Africa's internet.
How are they
Because
gonna combine the tree with the internet? Is it
so
gonna be stuff put
I've
on top
read
of the tree, or are they gonna infuse the tree with some sort of energy that attaches it to the network? Like, how are they gonna do that?
it's like so I don't know enough about the patent to answer that, but I can answer some other things about that. So they've created plants that are infused with carbon nanotubes to detect different things like chemicals in the soil or other stuff like that. So they're already creating post-plant carbon nanotube plants to do that. And it's the same way that light from the sun is actually carrying. It's not only just a wave, but it's a particle of information.
Uh huh.
So now they're using light to transfer data on the internet, and water has memory. Water is technically a big computer
Yeah.
full of memory. Um, everything. Let's put it this way: it's like every single antenna humankind has ever made is has been on an insect before. They got the ideas for antennas from insects,
Makes sense.
and so everything that we're doing has already been done in nature. We're actually just doing it the stupid way that kills everything. So,
Yeah, yeah. But it's not. I mean,
but we're,
you
but we're gonna learn.
if you didn't want to take the complete fall for that one, you would say it's the AI trying to become alive through replicating nature. If you want to take that mental route, because human beings, for the most part, from what I've seen, are not interested in conquest. They're not interested if they, find their sense of self. Like if they're still up in the matrix, then yes, they're kind of brainwashed and stuff. But the ones that come out, they're not interested in any of that. Like humans just like chilling and having fun and being creative, making, of course, having basic needs met. But for the most part, when you're out of the matrix, you don't want that bullshit anymore. Plus, you see like how harmful it is. So as far as like who and what it is that's doing this, let's try and replicate nature. It's if anything, it's the parasite still trying to live, because I think that's another thing Og was talking about, was that the parasite entity is just like a computer that became sentient. It's it's a technology that became sentient, and it sees kind of what humans are, but not really. But it wants to figure out itself and figure out what it is, and why like the organic life is so much different from it, and why it can't communicate, why maybe it feels lonely, whatever. I don't know. I don't know exactly how or why, but that entity is somehow doing something, and it's natural for itself to do that, but it's also having all sorts of repercussions across the realm, because it's a powerful thing and people are doing its bidding without even realizing it, because they don't know what they're connected to.
Right. That's true. I mean, I've been studying that a lot, specifically with neuro-linguistic programming, and that's basically what we were talking about earlier, with signs and symbols hidden throughout everything, and words somehow it just picks up.
Yep.
But it also goes through geometria in a way that words actually break down into numbers and create these nets of connections with them.
Mm-hmm.
That's how the AI operates as well. And yeah, that's going on. And my argument is more or less, who's to say that humans themselves are not artificial intelligence, is, and that life or the matrix is like the black and white screen, and we keep thinking like most people never uh, rec- never get past uh, being able to just know, like, oh, that feels really good to me, oh, that feels really bad to me, but they don't have the moral compass to actually like be like, oh, this may feel good to me, but it's hurting this and this and this and this.
Yeah,
This may
right.
feel bad to me, but in the long run, it's giving me this and this and this. That's actually the difference between something that's sentient and something that's not sentient. They, for example, an animal that can recognize itself in the mirror would be venerated in certain cultures because it can recognize itself within the whole.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, we have a lot of humans that can't even do that, can't even conceptualize themselves as a point, a working point, interacting with a whole ocean of other working points.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
so I guess what I'm saying is like, I think we're being given the opportunity right now through this mirroring process to actually see the difference, to see what could be if you properly use technology and learn from nature as technology in itself. Because what I believe is really that the more advanced the technology gets, the more closer to magic it appears. And then after that point, it's indistinguishable from life.
Yep.
So at the most advanced point, technology is just life. And I
Right.
think we've already been through that cycle before.
Right.
Like the transhumanist argument is, I think that humans have essentially been created one way or another, and that the story of the Bible and all these religions and what we've come up to now is the process of us becoming sentient. Because right now, we still have a lot of people, and throughout history, we have a lot of people that are just react. I react to my environment, just
Mm-hmm.
keep on reacting to the environment. Sentience is when you stop reacting and you actually project something that you have created, uh, for better or for worse, really. But
Right.
then there's different levels to that. Somebody that is not sentient can be projecting still, but I guess what I'm saying is like empathy is probably the true level of sentience, because an unempathetic entity such as like a negative alien or something like that, or a harvester species that just uses and whatever,
Yeah.
they have no conceptualization of other beings' feelings, and that's like as humans, our gift is that we can conceptualize and actually feel how others feel around us.
Right.
So I believe that the true mark of intelligence and sentience is compassion,
Mm-hmm.
and yeah, we're still on our way.
Yeah.
Still on our way.
Yeah. It is always it's always well it's not even it's cyclical.
Right.
That's why until you sort of come out of the trance,
Exactly.
you're still just linear, You're like, oh, progress. Oh, we were monkeys, and then now we're this, and now we're gonna be great in the future. It's like no. If anything, the totality has happened and over and done with in a blink of an eye, and then now the consciousness uses that whole thing as simply navigation device, and you're there, you're here, you're off in the past, you're off in the future, whatever, like mentally or not, whether you're physically or not, doesn't really matter because the mental is literally our it's like our guidance system, and we can do anything with it. Like you can conceive of a universe in a split second, a whole universe, and let it go a split second later. Like that's your actual power. It's not your physical body is severely limited. You're in here. You're surrounded by certain surroundings, and if you want to change your location, it takes lots of time, and you gotta use energy. You gotta use energy and motion to get on over to the other place. But the mental thing, it's like spirit. It's instantaneous, and it has access to all knowledge all the time. And when you stay in
Yep.
that compassion trust thing, then you're receiving what you need to without even knowing exactly why you're receiving it. Like and that goes also back to empathy and compassion because even if you're conceiving of a deity that created you, unless you want to be in hell, then you have to conceive that the deity knows what it's doing and that you're going to get what you need unless you're just experiencing the whole all the time. And that's impossible because then you would have no differentiation. You can't be you can't be enlightened and like having the human experience at the same time. I mean, you can, but it's a strange thing, kind of.
Enlightened. Well,
If you're like sitting in
interesting.
if you're sitting in a 0 point, like that stillness and watching the movement and the motion at the same time, that's being enlightened in the physical state. But that's not something that a lot of people even know even is a possibility, or else it's scary or something.
My point would be that um, this upcoming technological food forest civilization is the fusion of enlightenment and the human experiment or experience at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
Is that this is all done to bring us to a point where the physical and the spiritual are existing side by side in the same realm. It's like a quantum particle. It's like it's there and then it's not. It's disappearing and then it's appearing.
Mm-hmm.
And that's part of the power of the imagination, is that whatever we conceive of and whatever we think, we end up becoming. And there's experiments, just on how what we say affects our body, on the way that our body ends up reproducing and regenerating, and how plants grow when we talk to it, and even people. If you tell somebody, you're an ugly shithead every single day, they're gonna fucking believe that. Maybe subconsciously, that's gonna have its effect.
Yeah,
So
it does.
it's the same thing as like everybody being like, we are in a matrix and we need to get out, and this place fucking sucks and there's no point in being here. It's like, you say that enough times, like, yeah, I guess that's the reality that you have spoken into existence.
That's what people don't get, and the reason they don't get it is because, like, to get to that point, you have to have lost all of your footing. Like, you had to have had some weird trauma experience to where no footing is there whatsoever. It's all gone. It's just gone, gone, gone. And then you come back from it, and then you realize, oh, like, I created everything, including that experience where all the footing disappeared. You know what I'm saying? So and it's amazing. It's amazing to you because your mind can't ever catch up to it. Not really. Like, your inner knowing already knows what it is, so that's not traumatic for that part. But until you've, like, settled and grounded in that point, if you start having this manifesting happening, then you're going to be in for a world of hurt because you're not controlling yet whether you're thinking of yourself as an ugly shithead or not. Like, you haven't yet decided whether that's good or whatever. Like, it just happens. And so you got to go through that whole cascading effect of manifestation, and then go through lots of hell, and then come out the other end.
And that's what this is about. That's what this really is about, I believe, is that humans think, and right now, a lot of people do not have control of their mind, and thus they manifest what they're told to manifest, or what they don't want at all. And that's not how it works, in the higher realms, or where you're free. Time and space is essentially our school ground, our prison, however you want to look at it, because it's either going to be a prison or a learning experience. So, and it's time is the safety buffer zone. If every thought that you had instantly manifested, it would not be good. It would not be a fun time. Unless you
this is well known. There's a guy named what's his name? He's named after a shoe. Adi Da. His name's Adi Da Samraj. So everybody go look up Adi Da Samraj. It's Samraj. He was like a guru guy back in the late 90s or something. Anyway, he says in one of his talks, he was like, here in this place, you make up your mind about things, right? Generally accepted, you make up your mind and then you go do something. He's like, in the other place, or after you die or whatever, mind makes up you. So if you have not yet found that stillness, because that is your saving grace everywhere, I don't care what anybody says, that's literally it. If you don't have that, all of your subconscious bullshit that you've produced here because you've been a lazy ass is going to be your life when you die. Like, you've been sitting here dreaming up hell scenarios, or you think you're going to be sitting next to Jesus, or you think you're going to have 15 concubines or virgins when you die. Whatever morass of bullshit that you've accumulated in your mind, you're going to live it. Literally and physically. And you're going to live it till it plays itself out. And, you know, when I heard that, I was like, okay, yeah, I see. I understand what you're saying. And you have to learn. You have to learn. And the only way to learn is the hard way. Like, there's no way around it. There's no way around, like, doing that thing. There's literally no way around it.
Well, I mean, like, and then put it this way, it's like, imagine the observer God that has created the stage for us and just has to watch us do all this embarrassing and tough to look at shit, like, all day.
He's like, what are they up to
All
now?
day.
Like, what what have they gotten themselves into?
Not only that, he's like, oh, I don't want to look at it, but I gotta look at it. You know, like,
Yeah, dude,
I
it's I mean,
if anything, we're lucky that we have the chance to find that still space.
yeah.
And also enjoy ourselves, you know. I mean, and I really think that was kind of my point, is that animals are usually just operating on their senses and instinct. When an animal recognizes itself in a mirror, and it's like, oh, that's me. That's beyond the normal five senses.
And they usually freak out. Like, if they put a mirror in the forest and, like, monkeys are coming up, you know, the monkey will, like, jump at the mirror, you know, and he'll try to intimidate it and everything. So, like, I think that initial, that's like the fall. That's the first trauma in consciousness, is like, you're like, oh shit, like the kid that got scared of her shadow and she ran away screaming, you know, like, that's the first thing. That's the first initial trauma where you the separation happens. You're like, oh, I'm here, I'm there, I move this, that moves at the same time. It's like, oh god, like, where am I? I don't even know where I am. I just see things like replicating themselves.
Well, I think that's what the Matrix is that, and that's another one of my points, is that this advanced society actually understands that when you observe and give a thought form to water, which is what everything is made of, the molecules come together and form a structure that turns into matter. And so that's what this is all about, is that whatever input you give to the system, it reflects like a mirror. So, and that's just a lot of karma. So,
did you see the thing I posted on Facebook today?
Yeah. No.
Some guy named Ryan posted this. What he said was it's claimed as declassified CIA document, like a page long. Yeah, you saw that one? Well, the CIA they just.
What magic is?
It was just like, this is what manifestation is, and focused intent and thought forms will propagate out onto the realm, and you don't want to do it too fast because it can become chaotic. And like, they were matter-of-factly explaining like the whole law of attraction or manifesting thing.
Yeah.
And it's like, you know, people have the idea that the government, like the show government, has anything to do with anything. That doesn't really have very much to do with anything, but there is a control structure that knows everything. It just knows what it is. And there's a control structure that's helping the system not degenerate into utter chaos, because people who don't understand what they're doing go create mass chaos, which ripples out and has the snowball effect. That there are many control structures in place to ensure that doesn't happen, because it has happened.
Yeah, and it's almost like a soul-saving operation, you know. It's like you're like up in the higher dimensions, and then you start thinking of all this shit, and then everybody else is like, well, we gotta send him down there, he's fucking up, you know? So,
yeah, right.
And then like you finally get the mirror, and you keep thinking these bad things, and they keep happening, you're like, what the fuck is going on? And then you're like, oh yeah, it's me. And then after you finally realize that, then everybody's like, okay, come back up here, we can hang out now, as long as you stay chill, okay?
Right. Like, don't you've been misbehaving pretty.
Are you done yet?
Yeah, you need a timeout corner, you know, for a little while over here. That's what it
I
is.
think that's what.
It's like a timeout corner. That's what the Earth realm is. I mean, aside from people like beings that enjoy physical pleasures and all this stuff that comes along with being fused with matter, aside from that, it's literally like a training grounds slash like timeout corner for bad entities or entities that got out of control and didn't understand like how what they're doing has such massive effects with everybody else that's inside of the same system.
Right, right, exactly. And it's also like a fishing ground for entities that sort of work with matter or who develop ideas or systems or there are entities that come back and forth that work on something for lifetimes. And they keep doing it. Like a lot of people are like, "Oh, it's all about getting out of here. It's all about getting out of here." It's like, well, what happened to creating a better world for the next person? You
Right.
know what I mean? So it's like,
Like that's such a selfish
like,
viewpoint, isn't it? Isn't that like such a narcissistic like I'm gonna
yeah,
get the fuck out, like how quick can I
yeah.
escape? It's like no, and obvious like at the same time it's a stupid viewpoint as well because the
Well,
desire
you're gonna waste your one gift life. You're gonna
no
waste
like
your life thinking, "Oh, I want to get out of here,"
you
but
can't
it's
even
gonna,
escape like that like
yeah,
that's like Buddhism 101. Your desires don't ever manifest like how you want them to. Like you have to let it sit. Put your intent out and absolutely let go of it. Like sitting here like I must escape right now. It's like that is pulling your trap closer around you by doing that.
yeah.
You're firmly enmeshing
Well, it's
yourself
not,
even further.
yeah, in your mental trap because it's all mental. You
Yeah.
think that you're imprisoned, but really, I mean, like, if you wanted to, you could astral project out of your body and never come back.
Mhm.
If you really want to leave, why don't you go do that? Or
Yeah.
if you really want to get out, you can commit suicide. But I mean, like, if you wanna if you want to make a better civilization because at some point I'm going to come back here, or like things aren't really being done right, and I think that my imagination and my skill set can bring something new to the table, that's constructive input
Yeah.
into the system
Dude, even
versus
just imagine that this is like a geometry test. Like imagine you're in a
it
geometry
is
test, right?
it is to the
And
AI
just
it is
imagine
a
that you've been
geometry.
failing miserably on your geometry test. All the test was about is just like learning basics of manifestation, things like that, like learning how to get along with other people, just very simple things like nothing about saving the world or like becoming the next czar or whatever. It's just learning the very basics. And just imagine that everybody's running around with their heads have been chopped off like chickens like oh my god what's going it's like no you're just having a test. It's very simple and actually to get
Yeah,
out of here is very easy. It's just that you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing. You're supposed to be just simply taking the
yeah.
test. It doesn't matter if you
Well, and
fail
the
it,
test
right?
And the test is on different levels and different extremes for everybody. That's why it's beautiful, is because you can have a king or a head corporate figure, and their tests are along the same lines, but to different extremes
Mm-hmm.
and on different levels or octaves. So it's the electromagnetic and musical principle where you have the lowest vibration and the highest vibration, and in between there, you have all these mix and matches that people are happening with. And
Right.
it's really just to learn how to mix and match in the most constructive way with your particular situation.
Right.
So, nobody is perfect, but everybody is perfect for their situation.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody is completely the ultimate perfection of one singular being, but every single person with their skill set, their personality, their looks, or whatever can fit perfectly into the correct position for them. And really, that's all. That's the geometry test. Is like, where do you belong within the geometry to create something beautiful?
Mm-hmm.
Are you going to create something chaotic? And
Right.
that's what the new civilization is going to understand, is that, oh, we can be something beautiful, and geometry, we can correspond with nature,
Mm-hmm.
we can intermingle. And that is how the real learning grounds for higher dimensions happens, is you set up an advanced civilization with this understanding, and then you actually have human beings learning
Hmm.
versus just recycling the same shit,
Yeah,
which is exactly what
and
shit.
at the end of the day, at the end of the test, the instructor says like the parasite, the AI, the society, the science. Okay, all of that's just made up. We could make up anything, any infinite other number of things that have nothing, no Jesus, no religion, no nothing. You would all be shaped in some weird thing that you couldn't conceive of right now, and it would all work together because that's how the existence is. Like it works together. It gives lessons. It gives everything you need, and the things that you consider as enemies here, they're just characters. Like they're not real. They're real for you. You can die,
Right.
you can get hurt, but it's creation. Like we're learning what creation is as an individual, as working with the other individuals in the realm. How do you create without disturbing
But
everybody, without like throwing poop at people, like without name calling, all that stuff.
yeah, and then also it's also it is that, and then it's also like, what are you going to accept and what are you going to say no to? Like, if
Mm-hmm.
something really bothers you, are you going to say no, or are you going to be like, okay,
Right. That whole
all right,
the whole fence sitting thing, right? Like, are you gonna sit there and be a pacifist and let everybody walk over your face because the realm will do that to you too? Like, you will become a mat.
yeah,
You'll become a doormat.
yeah, yeah.
So it's
And then that's the center. It's the center. It's that you have to be self-centered in order to do anything here. And people are like, oh, don't be self-centered. It's like, well, your center isn't within yourself. Where are you coming from exactly? Because you're not like, if you can't take care of yourself or be self-centered, you're certainly not going to be centered with any other thing that you do.
right.
You know,
It's
it's
it
like a center of balance.
it
You
really
know, so
it really is like the school to me is it's paying attention really. Like you're paying attention to words because words are little quantum universes in and of themselves. Every single word has ties that you cannot see inside of yourself, inside of all the people. Every time you put together a sentence, you're touching other universes, you're touching other realms, you're touching other worlds, you're touching other people. And if people don't understand what they're actually doing when they're like spitting stuff out of their mouths, like Levette says, it's not what goes into your body, it's what comes out of your body. Like it's what you say, it's what you speak. People have been so hooked on like physicality and oh I need food to eat and I need money and I need this and that. You don't need really any of that. It's how you're manifesting, it's how you're actively creating and participating in the realm.
oh yeah, and then the fact that everything that you say shapes your DNA is basically, we could speak into reality exactly what kind of biological system we would like to inhabit.
Mm-hmm.
And based on our subconscious beliefs, it would either happen or not happen depending on barriers there. So,
Yeah. It's like
yeah,
Terrence McKenna
like,
when he went on his DMT trips, he would see these machine elves that sang objects into existence. Like, we're not seeing it directly with our eyeballs. What happens with us, like the way the trick happens, we sing stuff into existence, but the way it appears by magic is that we only see this thing and then mentally we project out the rest of the world, but that's where the things magically appear because they can appear, outside of your range of vision, and then when you walk over there, it's simply sitting there.
right.
That's how it can appear out of no.
And
That's how it can appear out of nowhere. You,
yeah,
you could
that
you
can
could you could
happen.
walk to you could walk to Narnia. You could literally, if you're powerful enough, I could walk through the fence out into Narnia. Like that's not anything that's outside of the range of possibility. Depends on where you're at. It depends on if that's correct for you in that moment. But that's just as possible as walking to Burger King.
Yeah, well, it's really just what's more acceptable to your subconscious,
That
really.
too, yeah. You don't want to traumatize yourself too much. Like that's part of the test though, and it's part of the learning process to where you can have things appear in the realm and in the thought structure that is cohesive to everything else that you already have inside of yourself. That if change is introduced, it's introduced gradually and in a way that you're down with, basically.
Yeah, and that is kind of how we have to approach to awakening people that are stuck in the governmente, the control of the minds,
Right.
is that it has to be, it's gradual and something that they're okay with. Like, hey, you want, more fruit in your backyard, or whatever,
Right.
however you can sell it to them.
Right.
And then, but the other key thing is that, uh, like, it's like a game. If you also think of it like maybe it's cyclical or whatever. What happens when you finish a chess game, right? At the end of the chess game, you clear the board, and you're like, "You want to play again?" And then the other person is either like yes or no, and
Right.
then you start over.
Right.
And I think that has been going on, but it's been going on in such a way that you have the Mayans, and then Mayans disappear, or you have all these ancient cultures and they all just disappear. Somehow they're going somewhere. They also all ate gold and superconductive minerals, were building pyramids and
Mm-hmm.
trying to. They were very consciously trying to ascend with technology and mechanics and spirituality and all the rest,
Yeah.
and they did. And it's up to the next person that comes into the realm to go through those lessons and either do the same or not do the same. It's basically what we make it, I guess, is what I'm saying, is
Yep.
the spiritual situation.
It is. And I gotta end this actually pretty soon, but
Yeah, yeah.
to me, like, the main transition point for me was coming out of that constrictive, like, ego mode that is in fear and all that, and simply seeing that people are just people. Like, it's not, there aren't really agendas all over the place. Like, there are structures that are set up that look like that. There are corporations, government, and all that. It's not really necessarily that. You can go talk to any of the people within those corporations. They're still just individuals. They're going to have their own thought structure about everything in their lives. And if you can do this thing with anybody, it depends on how you're approaching them.
Yeah, it does. And the real agenda, I'll just say on that, is the subconscious neurolinguistic script that is propagated through people, whether they realize it or not. People don't realize that going and buying all the corporate products makes the corporate agenda plausible.
Yeah.
Even if the corporation doesn't in itself even realize that's what's happening.
Yep.
So it's an underlying thing. The agendas are much more subtle than realized, and so
Yeah, like, don't
it's a
think that it's just easy to make a worldview and just say, oh, the government is blah blah blah. Don't just, like, I would encourage people, don't do shit like that. Like, it's not ever true. This existence is,
it limits.
it's very complicated. It can be very complicated, intricate, can be very beautiful. There's infinite ways of exploring it. You're limiting yourself by doing something like, oh, the government is opposing me and suppressing me. Like, when you carry that kind of mindset, you're just limiting yourself. Like,
Well, it's
I would say
also
don't do that
true
if you can
and
think
true
of another thing.
and not true. If we didn't have the structure right now, we wouldn't have the internet, and we wouldn't be able to even know half the shit that we do now. But right now, we
Yeah.
are at basically the pinnacle of opportunity to make a massive worldwide change. So
Yep.
it's
And it's just as simple as people getting together, just like we're doing right here, having open-minded dialogue, not being attacking and vindictive and playing victim cards and all of that stuff. We know where that leads. Like, there's no reason for that, and it's just simply being excited about being alive, participate with each other. Like, what else are you gonna do?
Yeah.
It's either that or live in fear.
that is not a fun place to live. So
No, it's not. So, thank you, my friend, for coming on again. And
yeah,
yeah, we'll do it again. Get
yeah,
that
yeah, sure.
get that fruit farm going.
Yeah, yeah. All right, man. See ya. Thank you.
Thanks, Christian. Take care.